Welcome to Midnight Menu Plus One. I'm Ray Canada.
And I'm Margot Moss.
We're here at Ted's Frost Top on Claiborne and Calhoun in Uptown New Orleans. And once a week, Margot and I meet here at Ted's, and we invite a member of New Orleans restaurant community to join us. And we invite them to bring along a friend, a plus one. We never know who the friend is going to be, but we do know who our special guest is today. We're very excited, Margot, right, to have Ryan Pruitt of Herb Saint and also Peche now here tonight with us. And he'll be joining us in just a moment. But in the meantime, wondering if you have any exciting things to share, food-related from the week?
I do from today, but I don't know if it's going to give you hives.
Well,
and we don't normally... Yes, because...
Wow.
You know, I'm so highbrow, but no, not really. But today I was on the West Bank.
Yes.
And I was in a mall, Oakwood Mall, trying to find cheap uniform clothes for
I'm
my
already
kid.
breaking out now. Okay, keep going.
So I'm walking out of the mall and I see this food court. And, you know, normally I would not stop at a food court. Now, I did not eat there, but there was a hibachi hut in the Oakwood Mall.
Uh-huh.
And they were making Chinese food in a wok. It was not like the kind of Chinese food that sits out all
day.
They
pour out of a bag, right? At most of these places.
This was like a full wok setup, and so I know you can't walk over the bridge. So one day I'm gonna bring you there as an experiment, and we're gonna try it.
The ferry will actually be reliable at some point after all these protests we've had and debates and everything.
And people trying to save the ferry.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Well, before the ferry comes back, I'm gonna bring you to the West Bank. But I did have a great meal over there, and it's another sketchy-looking place.
What's it called?
But it's good Thai food. Banana Blossom.
Banana Blossom. Well, that sounds great.
Banana Blossom.
Right.
It was very good.
Cool.
And I had their version of barbecue shrimp, and it was a coconut. It was a little sweeter version of barbecue shrimp, and I love trying barbecue shrimp at different places. So it was very good. I enjoyed it.
All right.
Did you have any culinary escapades?
I mean, I ate out every meal, I'm sure, but
nothing.
But nothing. I mean, they're all familiar. It wasn't like last week where I tried all the new places. This week, I went to Mona's. Not Mona's. Not Mona's. Mona's is great too. But I went to Lebanon today for lunch. It was great. Always great. Always love going there. But yeah, nothing exciting to report in terms of like new. But we don't need to waste any more time.
Yeah.
I'm dying to hear what Ryan has to say. So welcome. Glad you're here.
Yeah, good to be here.
Thank you, Ryan.
Well, tell us what you do and who you are and all that.
All right. So I am chef and part owner of Peche Restaurant in the Warehouse District. We are
awesome.
Just over 3 months old. So we've got, I think this is our 14th week. So we're brand new, but it's been a really interesting ride so far. And here's to hoping it lasts.
That's a Donald Link place too, right?
It is, yes. Donald and Steven from Cochon and Herb Saint are also chefs and owners of it. Right. So we all got together and opened this place together.
All right, so real big names in the food scene in New Orleans.
Right.
Very famous people involved. And Donald Link's the only one you've ever worked with, right? Since you've been
in New Orleans.
In New Orleans, right?
Yeah. He's Donald. I moved here to work for Donald and had been with him ever since, almost 8 years now.
And where did you move from, and where are you from originally?
All right, so from San Francisco. I moved here from San Francisco. Spent a long period of time there. Originally, I'm from Memphis, and so I was born and raised there. Spent first 22 years of my life there. High school, college, graduated, moved to the West Coast. Loved it. Stayed in San Francisco for a while. Started cooking professionally out there, got more involved in the food scene out there, and then eventually sort of got to a point where it was time to come somewhere that, my wife and I could afford to buy a house and maybe like have a yard and a dog and that sort of thing. And we landed in New Orleans, and it was really just a wonderful move. It's turned out great.
Was the culinary influence what brought you to New Orleans and wanting to have a yard and a house, or was it just y'all randomly thought about places? Or
well, truthfully, it was my wife wanted to get she was going after her master's in art history, and so we had 3 places. We were either going to move to Austin, so she could go to UT Austin, to New York for Columbia, or to here for Tulane. And Tulane gave her this great deal, and so we were like, well, let's go to New Orleans and check it out. And so we came down here I interviewed with Donald. Donald hired me 2 minutes into our interview, 3 months out.
Wow.
Which I don't know why
And how
he
much
did
experience
that.
did you have at this point in food?
Not much. I mean, just a few years.
What had you done?
I'd worked in with people that Donald knew in California, and so we had a sort of connection through California, and I, for whatever reason, I think one of Donald's great gifts is he's able to sort of read through the lines with people and make snap judgments that are typically correct. And so, to my benefit, he did that. So he hired me on the spot and said, I'll hire you 3 months later. Come back. You got a job. Wife got into graduate school here. So,
So what was your starting job with Herb Saint? What did you do first?
I moved here and immediately went into the AM pantry position.
Morning pantry?
The low man on the culinary totem pole.
So what's an AM pantry person do?
AM pantry is kind of the entryway into the kitchen. It's the way to get into a professional kitchen, to get a good feel for the systems in place and kind of just integrate yourself into the lifestyle of a kitchen. All kitchens are different, and we had people in common, so we sort of knew that we had some food philosophies in common. But every kitchen's different, and the way that Donald was running Herb Saint at the time was dramatically different than the last kitchen I had come from. So
in what
being
ways?
able,
like list some ways.
Donald's an intense guy, and he ran a very intense kitchen. And I think that the last chef that I worked for was much more California mellow. Donald was much more intense, to the great benefit of my education. And so being able to start at the bottom and kind of move through the ranks was invaluable. Like, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I mean,
What's an example of like an intensity? Like, give me one story from your early times. He's not going to be insulted. You can think of one, I'm sure.
I can think of many.
Give us one that won't get you in trouble.
All right. So one that sticks out in my head, so you when you go into a kitchen like this, like a lot of times, and the way that Donald ran his kitchen was with no recipes, with really he would just tell people to make things and then judge the final product, and you would either go back to zero, adjust it a little bit, or it would be fine. And typically there was always some adjustment. Sometimes you completely failed. And so Donald tells me to make a vinaigrette, and he wants me to make a warm bacon vinaigrette. And so I had made this for my previous chef, and I was like, all right, I got this, no problem. I make it, Donald comes by and tastes it, and he just like stares at it for a second and just goes, this is amateur bull, and grabs it and throws it in the trash can. And I was like, oh my God, man.
Wait, how long have you been working at this point for him?
The first day.
First day.
And so this has never happened to me before. This is like a story out of a book that, this is some stereotype that I was living. And Donald claims he doesn't remember this story. But it was a very like pivotal moment. I said to myself at that point, I was like, oh my God, this guy is serious. I've really got to make sure that everything's on point. And it was a very valuable lesson in retrospect that, that there are things that are acceptable and there are things that are not. And that line is not, there's no gray area, there's a black and white. It either is or it isn't.
So it inspired you and motivated you to...
What was wrong with
it didn't fit what he wanted.
Okay, did he tell you what, like, it needs to be saltier, it needs to be more bacony, it needs to be warmer, like what?
It needs everything. This is the classic Donald Link statement. It's everything, which means that...
So then you don't know.
You
like
have not put enough of anything in it.
How many times did you have to do it before, or was that the lesson
next time
for
worked
the day?
out much better, and then that was
the
a
same
sort of
day?
lesson. Yes, and that's a sort of lesson you carry through your whole career with very talented people like Donald. Is that you realize that there's a baseline that he's operating from that is meant to elevate you as a person. And this experience and many others with him were just invaluable and sort of moving me along in my career.
But were you kind of on your own to fix it, like, or did he like tell you what to do to fix it?
There's advice,
okay.
but a lot of times it's very sort of secondary. I've got more on my mind. Advice, it needs more acid, it needs more salt, it needs more. It's not emulsified right. It's not at the right temperature, and these happen in sort of stages.
Now, how long after that was it until you got promoted?
Pretty quickly, truthfully, because I moved here 4 weeks before Katrina, and so we went through that whole period. I had moved out of that station into another station in the morning kitchen, and then Katrina happened, and sort of everything fell apart for a month or two, and then Herb Saint reopened, and so I had come down here to work for Donald, and we were living back in Memphis, and that's not where I wanted to be. And so I immediately came back to work for Donald when he reopened Herb Saint, and that whole period was just so chaotic. There was so much bonding and emotion that happened during that period that it really allowed me to really focus 100% on the restaurant. And my wife had gotten, Memphis State, or University of Memphis now, was accepting Tulane students so they could continue their programs. And so she was in Memphis for a semester. I was here alone, so the only thing I did was work. And it all worked out great.
Well, I want to get back to Peche, but I have a question that's kind of related to this. And so Donald, his influence, you bonded at this point, so you're obviously culinary experience with him, you've learned a lot. Now, this was more of an emotional time, and I want to know what you have learned working with him on a personal level and then on a business level that brings you today. I mean, we, and you can share another culinary, but those two aspects that you've learned that you could say directly links to spending 8 years with him.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very, it's a complicated and long question. I mean, you learn, I think working in kitchens, you're very intimately connected to everyone you're working with. And at that point in both my and his career, Donald was in the kitchen full time, all the time. And especially in the post-Katrina months where, he was 100% dedicated to getting Herb Saint back to what it was prior to the storm, which was, the flagship, his baby, what he had poured all of his sort of life into. And so to be a part of that sort of, roller coaster of emotion and that power was just very moving and very motivating for me. Following that period, what Donald has been very good in teaching, I think, everyone who's receptive to it, that works for him, is that, this is a very serious business. We are here to provide food that is better than as best we can possibly do. And that goes to the sourcing of it, the preparation of it, every bit and piece that is involved in it. And aside from all of the intricacies that go into the creation of this food, we're also running businesses. And businesses mean that when you're in charge of a business, you're in charge of the livelihoods of a lot of people. At Peche, we employ over 50 people.
Wow.
All of those people are...
Is that more or less than Herb Saint?
It's about the same.
Okay.
Between 40 and 50 is where all of the restaurants kind of hover. And it varies, but typically that's a good number to kind of base it off of. But you are, like, when you're in charge of the restaurant, you're in charge of all these people's livelihoods, and that's that's to be taken very seriously. And when you make decisions, you don't make them capriciously. You make them with thought, and you make them with the best interest of the restaurant in mind. And Donald is both a great cook and a very astute business person, and so he was a great guy to learn from both of those aspects.
So now he's got how many restaurants now?
Let's see, we've got 5 in New Orleans. 5, yeah.
Right. So he can't be where you are all day, every day. He's going around to the different ones, and you've been you were head of the kitchen basically at Herb Saint, right? The day-to-day stuff. It was basically you, right, for several years now. Right.
I spent a couple of years in that position at Herb Saint, which was great, invaluable. Donald is very much more hands-on at Herb Saint than I think that he's able to be hands-on at other restaurants.
That was kind of like
now.
the flagship one, I guess, right?
Yes,
and
it's his
first
baby.
one too. Yeah.
And so, yes, that was a great educational experience. To have my first chef job underneath him at that restaurant was very educational, every step of the way.
So now you're pretty much running the show though at Peche, right? I mean,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's your thing for the most part, right?
And it's important to realize that running the show is a difficult phrase to use, because there's input from a tremendous amount of people, from Donald, from Stephen. It's a very much a collective, and we all collaborate extensively on everything that happens in the restaurant. Previously when I was the corporate chef for them, it was more collaborating on the whole of the entity.
Right.
Now it's really collaborating on Peche. So it's not there's no sort of one person show. It's very much a collaborative effort.
Well, I want to enlarge on that a little more, but looks like your plus one is here, and maybe it's time to introduce her. So why don't you tell us who you brought?
So I brought Ashley. Ashley is she acts as our forager. Definition-wise, she goes out and finds us stuff. She finds us vegetables and meat and poultry and fish and has really expanded our reach in our region.
Huh. So you say forager? Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
That's the word we use.
Yeah,
Ashley, tell us what's your full name?
Yeah, you have a last name, right?
Yes, it's Locklear.
Ashley Locklear.
Yes.
Lovely name. Now, do you do that just for these
Link Restaurant Group.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, so it's for the whole group.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
For all the restaurants.
Were you foraging? Is that the proper? I don't know. Yeah. Were you foraging before
procurement? Yeah.
Procurement before? I mean, did you apply for this, or did you evolve into this position? How did you?
I involved in I guess I got involved starting out as an AmeriCorps position here in New Orleans with a market, and then from there that required me to work with people locally and within also in the state of Louisiana, but as well as Alabama and Mississippi to bring in product for that market.
So what market were you working for before?
Holly Grove Market and Farm.
Oh, great. Oh, yeah, we're big
Wait,
fans. Yeah.
AmeriCorps was working with Holly Grove.
Yeah, they placed you in Holly Grove?
Yes.
And okay,
Yep.
great.
Yep.
What a wonderful thing. Okay, so where'd you come from?
I'm originally from Florida.
So that was the last place you were before you came from with AmeriCorps?
Yep.
Oh, we're in Florida.
North of Tampa, about an hour and a half in Crystal River.
Oh, my wife's mother lives in Crystal River.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, my family was just there last week. A little tiny place.
It is
really small. Yeah,
Yeah.
what a world.
Does
okay.
anything grow there? Did you have any influence?
Well, there's
I mean,
more
how
like
did you
plants
get-
than people there for sure, right?
Yeah.
Well, my dad is a fourth generation Floridian, and so and his family background is seafood and fishermen and stuff like that, and then they also farmed as well. So I do have some experience there, definitely.
Yeah, it's big manatee country and stuff there, right?
Yes.
Isn't it big? Yeah.
Yes, manatees.
Now, how were you approached from Holly Grove, or did you approach? How did you get into this?
Well, with
specific position?
AmeriCorps, you sign up for a position, and I actually signed up for a New Orleans position and a Charleston position, and then a position in Asheville. And then basically I was kind of just like up in the air on what I wanted to do, but New Orleans position came up first, and they contacted me first about.
But how did y'all meet? Like, how did you and Ryan meet?
I think
or?
Ashley's underselling herself here because she put together a proposal and brought it to us. Like, this was while I was at Herb Saint, and she brought it to us and presented it to us on the sidewalk outside of Herb Saint. To be our forager, and previously we had not
Just kind of cold called you, just like showed up with this proposal.
More or less. I mean, it's a little more complicated than that,
Yeah.
but more or less, it was a cold call proposal that she brought to us, and we had not even really considered this position before. I think Steven, you had contacted Steven a little bit, and
Tell
then
us Steven's last name. Sorry to interrupt.
Strajewski.
Okay, thank you.
And so, she basically brought us this proposal on the sidewalk outside of Herb Saint, which is where we drink wine and conquer the world's problems. And she brought this to us, and we thought about it for about 20 minutes, and we're just like, well, clearly this is going to expand our reach, and this is a position that we should fund if we're ever planning on growing this business.
So is you're in charge then of getting all the supplies, like everything, or is just one aspect of? I mean, it's just you everything goes through you basically, like all the produce, and
all
all
the
the meat
local
and everything.
products.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So before you kind of do an ad hoc more, you were like you
Well,
had a number of
before
suppliers.
it was Steven and I going to the farmers markets
and picking up.
and grabbing stuff
Sorry.
and picking up, and there was very little coordination. Like, we weren't able to. I mean, one of the things that Ashley's done for us that I think is really valuable is coordinate the growing seasons with farmers and coordinate supply so that we can base menus on products coming from local farmers. And
so you know what's coming, you know what's like next,
Right.
and maybe you weren't anticipating before as well because you weren't able to commit yourself to studying that or whatever,
or
right?
communicate
Yeah.
properly
Communicating,
with the
right.
farmers. And I mean, and this sounds very basic, but you know, you're talking about like we use a lot of produce. Like we go through a lot of lettuce, for example.
Like how much lettuce do you go through at like say Peche?
This is a great question
Yeah.
for Ashley. Not just
Yeah.
at Peche, but at all the
Or at the
restaurants.
5 restaurants, how much lettuce would they go through in a week?
In a given week, it's planned for about 50 to 60 pounds, but
Okay.
then there's highs and lows within a growing season. So I try to work with at least 3 producers that all have things growing at different times. Like they just plant maybe 3 or 4 weeks differently from another producer. So that way, if there's ever any issues with supply line, like say something happens on one farm, then the other farm can pick up the slack. But we try to work and get that supply line, you know, to the 50 or 60 pounds a week. That's
So you're
needed.
talking about small farmers for the most part, right? I mean,
Yes.
like little family farmers or
15
mostly-
acres or less.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Now, this is a two-part question.
Mm-hmm.
How did you develop this
Cisco for you.
idea that this pitch
No
with
Monsanto.
them in mind? And yeah, wait, you distracted me with
I'm
that.
sorry, I hate
I mean, we
Monsanto so
can
bad.
go there. We can go there,
gonna
but
kill
let me
me
just
now,
get
aren't
this
they?
question out.
Okay.
Do you drive a truck and you pick up the food yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
So you go out to the
And-
farms and get it?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And
Neat.
how did you? I mean, had you had this idea and then you pitched it to them, or did you have a general idea? Y'all collaborated and it's evolved over time to
Well,
forage for them.
Well, it came to a point where I was kind of looking to make a career change, and Steven and then Ryan and then occasionally Donald would also show up at the Holly Grove Market on Saturday mornings. And I had mentioned, you know, the fact that I was thinking about moving, and I was like, but they need a forager in NYC at the Spotted Pig. And I was like, maybe I can go up there and do what I do here. And Steven was
No.
like, no.
Don't
No,
go.
not really. Yeah, like you've done so much work here. So basically that kind of got the idea in my head, well, I'm just going to go home and write out the job scope, the parameters, the position, all of it, and then just kind of present it to them and see what happens.
Great. So what does this enable you, Ryan, to do that you used to have to spend your time going there?
Right.
Does it give you a little more time with your family, or does it just give you more time to work hard at Peche?
I think it definitely frees up time, you know, and whether that time is at home or at the restaurant, it gives you the option. And you know, as the chef of a new restaurant, you know, that minutes count in many ways. And so, but what it frees us up to do is to rely on the fact that we're going to be able to work with the product that we want to work with. And you know, we're all working, and we've spent years working with Ashley to get towards this point where as high a percentage as possible of the stuff that comes into the restaurant, the vegetables, the proteins, the fish, the everything, is all from our area.
Right.
And this is not, I mean, I think you have to be realistic about it. Like, this is not an easy thing to do for a restaurant group that has Cochon, Peche, and Herb Saint, and Calcasieu, and Butcher, and I mean,
That's a variety of places. I mean, just
There's a lot
summarize
going
for us, for
on.
example. Maybe not all our listeners know. Maybe they haven't been to all these places.
Mm-hmm.
What's sort of like? Can you describe each one succinctly in terms of what the menu's like? Because that's a wide range of.
Succinctly. Let's see. So
Like two
starting with Herb
sentences in
Saint.
each.
Herb
Yeah.
Saint is a sort of a bistro type environment based in French and Italian cuisine.
Right.
Herb Saint tends to be considered the slightly more higher end of the restaurants. You know, I think
Without
the food,
being stuffy.
Right. And the food at Herb Saint tends to have a really sort of refined rusticness to it that I think fits the space beautifully in the concept. Cochon is decidedly the Cajun Southern version. They rely heavily on pork, but which is not to say that that's sort of the one thing they do well. They do many things well, but sort of in the purview of Southern Cajun food. The idea behind Peche is that we apply the sort of philosophies of using southern ingredients and southern food that created Koshan and bring it into the seafood world and really focus on the foods of the Gulf Coast. And so what we try to do is not only Louisiana, but it's also the Gulf Coast. I mean, we extend our range into Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida because you kind of have to follow fish that way. Like if we're really going to be serious about sourcing correctly from our area, then we need a broad area because there's lots of things that you can't buy commercially in Louisiana that you can in Mississippi and Texas and Alabama. And so we take as our sort of backyard the entire Gulf.
Right.
But
you're not shipping fish in from like the Pacific Northwest and
not all. I won't say that we'll never do it because as a cook I love king salmon, and as a cook I love halibut, every once in a while I want to eat skate wing, and it's not to say that we're 100% pulling it off a boat from some guy.
So you're not purists about it, but this is sort of the flavor of it, and the tone is set by the Gulf, basically. Yeah,
and we're realist about it. I like to eat mussels, but commercial mussel production doesn't happen on the Gulf Coast, and so I'm not entirely nixing mussels from the menu because I like them. There's.
All right. So what else do we have left? Koshan Butcher, we didn't say.
Yeah, Butcher. So Butcher is the kind of like the all in-house made meats and really focusing on the charcuterie aspect and doing a great job producing sandwiches out of products that are entirely made in-house. Calcasieu is more of a banquet facility, so it kind of falls as a sort of mixture of all.
That's the upstairs above Koshan, right?
Correct. Yeah. Correct.
Yeah.
And this may be a silly question, but do you foraging, does that reference only like produce and vegetables, or do you have something to do with the meats and
I do.
Fish?
We actually work with Bill Riles Dairy out of Tylertown, Mississippi, and they produce the pork for Koshan. And so we took about 18 months to play around with breeding and eventually ended up with a Berkshire Bluebutt cross for Koshan restaurant.
So what's the furthest you drive for some of these things? I mean, to go pick up. I mean, you're going to pick up. Are you coming back with like pigs in the back of your truck?
No.
Okay. So but what's the furthest you're driving to?
On a given Tuesday or Thursday, it would probably be 250 miles round trip.
Round trip, okay. See, I drive like 250 miles a month at the most, not even that. So I can't even relate. So what do you? I mean, I remember what it used to be like, I guess. But do you listen to music in the car? Are you thinking about the conversation you're gonna have when you get there? Are you like a hard-nosed negotiator? Is there what kind of things are? How are you on the phone while you're there, working on the next stop you're gonna make on the way or something, or what's happening in the car? You by yourself in the car most of the time?
I am by myself, and I do occasionally have NPR's All Songs Considered on because I like to catch up on the music. But
books on tape?
No books on tape. But I am thinking about all the things that I do have to pick up at the next stop, and I'm like, okay, and I'll look at the list like 2 or 3 times, and I'm like, don't forget to get this because I forgot it last time, type of thing. And then once I get there, it's a hustle to get everything in the truck and loaded, and especially like this time of year, it's got to be on ice. It's got to look good, and it's got to not fade out in the back of the truck on the way back to the restaurant. So I'm really just hustling.
So you probably have some bad days.
Exciting though. That's really exciting to me for her to come to New Orleans, work through AmeriCorps, work at Holly Grove, and create this position and work with all these great people and them have opportunity to work with you. I mean, that's just romantic to me.
It is. It's exciting. I mean, to me, it's like this is like exemplifying what like post-Katrina New Orleans is about, with people that come here and they fall in love with the city and have a vision. They learn something when they're here, and then they say, okay, I'm gonna make something for myself. I'm gonna carve out a niche, something creative. And then enables you to make a career of it and stay here indefinitely.
And create a community.
And then enrich the whole
and
city.
And help the city,
Thousands of people are blessed because of the way that you're, hooking up these little farmers that get gobbled up otherwise sometimes with, some of America's greatest restaurants here that are, that are just feeding us and the city and America and the world as they come here. And I mean, that's just that can't be more gratifying when you stop and think about that sometimes.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good. She needs that.
Yeah. Because there's got to be some bad days, right, where you get there and they promised you the lettuce or whatever, and you get there and it's wilted or whatever's going on.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably it's okay for some people, but it's not okay for the standards of the places.
There's
that you're
6:30 text messages in the morning
Right.
being like, "This is what's available."
Right.
Like it's gonna be a little short, or
Right.
Like when you get back, maybe a butternut squash or a blue Hubbard squash isn't ripe, and so it's not ready yet to be used.
And
so
now you've just
you
driven
gotta-
125 miles to find that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's and you feel bad for the farmer because this is a big part of their account or whatever, but
Yeah.
you got your standards, and I mean, it's got to be a lot of that going on
Oh, yeah.
too, right?
Well, speaking of standards and squash, it's time for a book of questions. Let's squash
You know about the
any
book of questions?
comfort
Have
you
you
had
listened to any
here
of the
today.
shows?
So y'all have to pick a number between 1 and 217, and we ask you that question out of this really highly intellectual book from the
I like
80s.
it.
Very intense, overwrought
No.
book from the 80s, yeah.
All right.
You got to
You
go
can
first.
go first, Ryan.
123.
All right.
Okay. Okay. When you do something ridiculous, how much does it bother you to have other people notice it and laugh at you?
I would say very little.
Oh yeah.
You could care less.
Definitely.
Because I'm a seasoned professional at that. And
Hogs
spending
for the
most.
cause comes to mind.
Yeah.
Oh, this
Whoa, what happened to
come
Hogs
on.
for the Cause? Tell us.
No,
No, tell us now.
Yeah.
Relive it. If not, we're going to have
Yeah.
Ashley tell
It's
us.
a very special time when people experience a freedom unrelated to the rest of their daily lives.
And it's for a great cause.
It is, and we try to have a giant party each year for Hogs, and this year we did this really great dinner before on the Friday beforehand to help raise more money for them, and we had a bunch of friends come in town, cooked this giant dinner, and as the sort of centerpiece after the dinner, we set up an ice luge with Jello shots. And
Wow.
so we served Jello shots with the dessert to try to get the crowd amped up. We had a good friend of ours who owns a barbecue restaurant in Nashville and goes by the name Peg Leg Porker.
Peg Leg Porker is his name?
Is in fact.
Is it one of his
Wait,
two legs,
wait, is
or
that
just,
his-
is
is
it
that his
a
restaurant's
reference
name or
to a
his
third
name?
leg?
That's his
Nobody
character's
heard.
Nobody heard
name.
Here she goes, going blue. I was wondering what's going to happen, Margot.
He
got-
has a peg leg.
Okay.
And he
in
owns
real
it.
life.
Like a pirate peg leg? Like a wooden
Wooden?
one? Or does he
It's-
have
no,
like
he
a
has
modern...
sophisticated peg
Oh,
leg.
okay.
Okay.
Fiberglass.
Built
okay.
for speed.
Okay.
But the guy's hilarious, and he was our sort of MC DJ for this thing, and
Nice.
he mans the ice luge, and so we got on stage to like promote this whole ice luge, and we're dancing and we're singing songs, and then we're realizing that everyone's leaving. Like they have no interest in our
They don't want your Jell-O
performance.
shots?
Not any
or
of them.
your shenanigans
They
up
don't want
on
to have anything to
stage.
do with our shenanigans.
Was there something more interesting
Except-
going on? Like,
I can't imagine what it would be.
what could it be?
I don't know.
I've never even been on an ice luge once in my life.
Not
I'd love to
once?
be. No, never. I'm going
Well,
next
come
year.
see us next year.
Yeah, I will. Unless the story ends horribly and it means you're not
No,
gonna
it
have an
doesn't
ice
end
luge. Okay.
horribly. Like it ends, and so we go back to the tent. We do our thing. The next day we wake up. We realize that we have a
spent the
second
night in the
ice
tent?
luge. Yeah, of course. You sleep out there that night.
You do
Um,
the cooking all night.
Overnight,
through the night.
yeah, it's an overnight
Sweet.
thing. And so we realize we have actually another ice luge in the truck. So we bring out our second ice luge for that afternoon. Go through the
They
whole
don't melt
process
all
again.
that time?
We had it in a refrigerated truck.
Truck.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, we're smart.
How big is the ice luge?
Professionals. Oh God, I don't know. They're like
It's like as big as this
100-pound blocks of
Yeah.
ice, maybe.
Wow.
They're huge, and you take a sort of rotary drill and gouge out the the luge part of it, and then what's most important is that you have someone on top of it pouring the liquor down the ice luge in whatever sort of quantity and fashion they so choose. and
That's a
coaxing
coveted.
people
Must
in.
be a
Wait,
coveted
wait.
position.
So how do you catch the liquor at the end? You just put your mouth there.
That's
and
correct.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
Yeah, mouth right on the ice.
All right.
Not sanitary.
Yeah, I was just going to
But
say,
that's
are
not
you a
important.
germphobe?
I guess I guess Margot. No, because the ice will arrest one.
And the liquor.
Yeah.
Yeah, liquor is
Totally
fine.
clear.
Come on.
Margot's got one of these in her living room, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. Most people who enjoy life should.
Should. Wow. Okay. So you got that. No takers. It's just spilling on the ground.
Well, no. When we got it back out the next day, there were plenty of takers.
Oh,
And so
good,
we
okay.
had this sort of like great thing going for a while, and then it got old, and there was this group of children that's in our tent. Kids of us and all of our friends, and finally I was just like, kids, smash it. And so turning the kids loose on this ice luge was just hilarious. So
You mean your people you work with are real kids?
they're actual kids.
Kids, like
actual
little
children.
kids.
Like strange
Fun.
kids, like or
No,
kids.
friends' kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Friends of
Like-
children. Yeah, like children. And so you turn them loose on it, and they smash it, and they're smashing ice blocks, and this cop comes up on a golf cart.
Oh, come on.
and
You
it's sort
can't
of
be
like,
smashing
he's
ice
like,
out
he
here.
looks at us for a few minutes, and he's like, "You can't do that on the sidewalk."
Oh,
and I was
shut
like,
up.
Okay, how am I gonna stop? Like, I got a whole group of kids smashing the ice luge.
You
Like,
stop
what?
'em.
You can't. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't stop kids. They're
You
on
have
a
to shoot
roll.
'em.
Yeah, they're all like soaking wet. There's no way to stop these kids now. And so eventually he just
Who would
shakes
want
his
to?
head and laughs.
Oh, it's awful.
Yeah.
It's
So
the current administration. That's surplus. That came from the
So
top.
that didn't break you to be the ridiculousness of the
think it
whole
did.
scenario. That was the
No, I think that's just part of it. I think it's important to live outside yourself every once in a while. I
Okay,
do it a lot less
great.
now that, I'm 37 and have my own kids. but
Now, by the way, you had a kid born like a week ago, right?
I did, yes.
A week
we just
ago?
had
Yeah.
another one, yeah.
So you have
I have two. I have two. I have a 2-year-old and a week and a half-year-old.
wow, and you're here with us.
Yes.
On
yes.
on your valuable free time. Very
Well,
generous.
really-
Your wife must be
am
amazing.
flattered.
She
Yeah.
is awesome. Yes, she's a wonderful person.
Wow. Okay, I did read something about your wife, but let me get to your question, and then
Oh, yeah.
we'll get back
Oh,
to your
very
wife,
good.
interrogate you, because she must be lovely. Okay, what's your favorite number?
7.
7. You want to read this one, Ray?
Holy. 7's a holy number. Do you think that the world will be a better or worse place 100 years from now? We had that one before. I remember that. Is the world going to be a better or worse place 100 years from now?
I'm gonna have to say better,
All right.
And why?
of course.
Sorry. I can't let you just be positive.
Foraging is
and
going to make it a better place.
There's just so much, I guess, innovation going on. People have so many big ideas. Technology is also helping to facilitate those ideas. So I see great things happening and starting to come together.
Ah.
Nice.
I have a follow-up question.
Mm-hmm.
What's a piece of paper on your lap? What?
Those are my notes.
Those are your notes. You don't need notes.
I know.
All right, just wondering. Didn't
That's
know if that was
just
like a
proof of
secret.
Ashley's organizational
Yeah.
capabilities.
Super organized.
Mastery. Yeah. Wow. This is a tight. I wouldn't have guessed this, Ryan, because you seem so laid back and you're so relaxed. Every time I run into you, you just have that look of like contentment in your eyes and like And to think of what a well-oiled machine apparently you guys run, it's really.
There's a lot of people involved.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of great, like we've got this great melding of personalities going on, but from Ashley to me to Steven to Donald to the myriad other people that exist in the organization. And I mean, it's really, I hate to use an old cliche, but I mean, it becomes like a very sort of familial type of vibe. I mean,
Right.
you end up working with people and knowing who you can really trust. And when you develop those relationships, everything tends to run a lot smoother.
Huh. Yeah, I guess. Well, so you have a common vision, and then a lot of different
Yes.
personalities and gifts can all work together as long as you
Yes.
guys got the same vision, huh?
Yes, that's a good way to put
Now,
it.
do you have a vision for a 6th place or something? What's next for? Can you say?
Ah,
Are you
there's
thinking
always
about it?
ideas, but we're so new at Peche. Like, I
Right.
hate to even go down that road.
Well,
But of
okay.
course,
Well,
you've always gotta think
Well,
of
how
the
about not
next
even
thing.
for you? How about just for other people? Like, give some other people some ideas. Like, what is missing in New Orleans food culture?
Oh man,
What are
I
some
don't even
gaps that
know.
need filling? I got my own list, but I'd love to hear yours.
So yeah, or if you weren't here tonight and you could choose a food option that's not
Yeah.
here, what is it that you're missing?
You know,
Yeah.
I
Do you
don't
go,
know. I mean,
damn,
there's
if there was only a Mongolian place in town, or whatever. Like, what's
Chinese food.
Chinese? Yes, I totally agree. Well, not to disrespect some of the good Chinese
Yes,
places or like that, but
there's some.
But
there's
in
some people
general,
doing good
nobody's going to
stuff.
say that New Orleans is a mecca of Chinese.
It would be great
mastery,
to have some
right?
good Chinese food.
Yeah.
It would be great to have some really good diversity of Korean food. I mean, but you know, I don't know that that's even right that we should. I mean, the reason that cities like San Francisco and New York have good Chinese and Korean food is because they have populations of Chinese and Korean people. Right. And we don't have huge populations.
And we got great
of
Vietnamese
those.
food, and because we got a good Vietnamese community.
So we have a Vietnamese community. We have Vietnamese food, so it's perfectly logical. So maybe that's just the way it should be.
Well, what are good Chinese places here that you like? Is there a Chinese place that you do go to when you crave it?
Man, I go there. Royal China.
Huh.
Occasionally we go over to like the Hong Kong market, to the dim sum place next door.
In the mornings.
Yeah. You know, we go there just because, like, when we were in San Francisco, like, we ate a lot of Chinese food and had, you know, going to the dim sum places out there was just so much fun. Like Tom King out in the avenues is a great place, and you know, Yang Sing was another great place out in California. But you know, you gotta support the people you can.
Yeah, and you know, maybe there used to be more communities and influence in New Orleans. We were a port city, and maybe in 100 years, or maybe, you know, there will be more of a community efforts and some
if there
Chinese
is,
food
then the answer
places.
to that number 7 is definitely right. The world's a better
In the
place.
70s, there was some Chinese
Really?
places. Yeah, like there was. Well, you don't make it out to Metairie because on
never
foot.
I honestly don't know where
But
that
there was
Oakwood
some
Mall is
food,
that she's
there were
talking
some
about before. I have no
families
clue.
that
No
had
clue.
Chinese restaurants that were
Okay.
well established, and you know, and the kids aren't in the business anymore
All right.
to carry it on. But yeah, but
Yeah,
there's
I
nothing
think
like
you can
going to a
always-
Chinatown in a city.
Yeah,
And-
it's great. I think you can always want for what's not there, but you know, it's easier and maybe more fulfilling to just enjoy what you have here. And there's so many people opening up so many innovative restaurants right now, like Noodle and Pie, and all these people are really like
I went
following
there last
these,
week. Yeah.
I
these
haven't
very
been yet.
sort of like different pathways,
Yeah.
you know, and Lucky Rooster and
Yeah.
like
Street
all these
food.
other places are doing the
That's
food.
Foodie
Chinese.
street food.
Oh, I have not been in the Bywater Booties.
Yeah,
Okay,
there's
that looks
booties
cool.
too. I mean,
Yeah.
there's people doing things that are decidedly different, and that's great. You know, that's what'll keep the scene vibrant, and you know, keep giving people new places to go.
And they seem authentic. And do y'all feel that New Orleans is like a chef driven in business owner city? Like, is that common in a lot of places for a chef to be a part owner in other cities, or is that you think it's more accessible here?
It's probably more accessible here because the cost of entry is less so than in places like maybe San Francisco, Chicago, and New York,
Definitely.
where you really have to have investment groups. I mean, you can't open up like a restaurant the size of Peche. You know, Peche is 4,800 square feet total, and to open up a place like that in San Francisco or New York would require
Millions and
millions of dollars to begin with. You know, and
So chef's more a hired gun. He's not one of the investors in it usually.
you know, at best he's a high paid or maybe sweat equity owner, or maybe he is maybe he put his money into it as well. But I mean, when you're talking about the money that it costs to open up a restaurant like that in a big city, that's money that investment banks have. That's money that big investors have, you know, or very wealthy people have. You know, it's different here. I mean, there's this, which is not to say that opening up a restaurant like Peche is cheap. I mean, it costs a whole lot of money, and there's a whole lot of finagling that has to happen to do it. But you're able to do it in New Orleans. You're able to produce something that you can be really proud of on a budget that's considerably less than what it would be in other major
and
cities.
Well,
maybe
Ryan, that
more
really
authentic.
that makes me think
Sorry.
something too. I didn't mean to interrupt, but you know, I don't know. In other cities, you know, if you just go by reviews, Urban Spoon or Yelp or whatever, your friend's recommendation, you're almost afraid if you don't know the restaurant really well to bring a friend because you don't know how people are going to be treated. And the thing about New Orleans that I like is places like, we're talking about Herb Saint and Cochon and Peche, these are the highest end sort of places in the city are among them, and yet, it's a very down-to-earth place. There'll be people that are very dressy, but there'll be people that are very casual that'll be there too. There's no pretension.
Yes.
It's very accessible. There can be jerks everywhere or whatever, but
Sure.
in general, and so you can just sort of have a casual introduction to a place like that, and you just know, well, it's New Orleans, I can go there, and I'm not going to be treated like a jerk.
Right.
And I remember feeling that way about Herb Saint. I didn't realize, I came from New York, and everything's a little more intense there or whatever.
Sure.
And I get down here, and Herb Saint was one of the first high-end places I went to for lunch, and I had a great experience. I didn't meet you that day, but I did see Steve Watson, who I had met right before that.
Yeah.
He's been a guest on our show. I saw him in a state of bliss that day. And it was lunchtime.
Yeah.
And you know the story I'm getting at? I think these guys come back once a year to Herb Saint.
Yeah,
Can you
back
illustrate
room.
this for me? I'll just tell you what my little snapshot I saw. I see him come out in a pair of, he's always like in jeans and like he's got ratty, he's got a lot of facial hair or whatever, and he came out in these pair of golf pants that were like a little over the top. They were gold and black, and they were like checkered argyle.
Yeah.
And he had a golf sweater on, and he was about to read a song or sing a poem.
And y'all
or something.
appreciated his being there. You didn't.
Yeah.
He wasn't like being rolled out of the.
Well, no. There's a whole group of these guys, right? So tell us
Yeah.
what that's all about.
That is the sort of biggest Saints fans in the world luncheon that tends to go on for like 4 or 5 hours.
They rent out the place like your back room or something, or they do it like once a year, don't they?
Or they just come in and invade.
They invade more than anything. They don't tell you when they're
It's
coming ahead of
no,
time.
we know they're coming,
Oh, okay.
and we know what to expect. And it's a lot of wine purveyors and people that are in the business, and so the table ends up being just this sort of mountain of empty wine bottles, and the poems get emotional towards the end, and it just gets ridiculous.
The quality goes down and the emotion goes up. Yeah,
Oh
right.
man, and I have to say, from a personal standpoint, I have watched that table degenerate until it's 4:30, and I'm sitting there and I'm grabbing the people I know, and I'm like, I love you guys,
But you
gotta go. Like,
Take it to a bar.
Ashley,
yeah, get
have
out
you
of here.
ever witnessed that?
we got dinner to do. You guys
I don't
have
think
got
so.
to go.
No.
Yeah, you'd know if you saw it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely
Well,
a sight.
I have one more question.
Anyway, well,
for Ashley,
just from my
because-
side, if it makes you nervous about it,
Uh-huh.
it's one of the reasons why I fell in love with that restaurant. I go
Yeah.
back a lot because that was my first impression. I went there, I was like, and I was I looked at a pretty complex menu and had a couple words I wasn't familiar with yet. And then I see these guys roll out, just being silly. I go, this is my kind of place.
Yes.
I love this. Great food mixed with like really kind of fun, bizarre atmosphere, and it was just
And
great.
in a way, that's sort of the essence of like New Orleans
Yeah,
dining.
exactly.
I think that you try to capture everything, every piece
Yeah.
of it, in every way, and that's what makes it so much fun.
All right. I interrupted you. What were you saying?
Well, it seems silly after this, and we're getting to the end of the show.
Oh, no,
But
already?
Okay, well, one more question for Ashley. When you're on the road, what do you do for? Do you stop? Do you have spots along your route that you love to eat at?
Yeah, there's one place that I go to on Thursdays. It's Berrytown Produce.
Berrytown?
Yeah.
Where is that?
It's in Hammond on Church Street. They have a really delicious fried chicken lunch special for $6. You get green beans and eggplant casserole for $6 and 2 pieces of fried chicken. And it's gone in 5 minutes.
Yum. I think I'm going to have to make a trip to Hammond.
Yeah.
Thursday. That's the.
Yep. Because they have different lunch specials each
Never been to
day.
Hammond.
Yeah.
I've never been any place outside New Orleans Parish. Since I got down here. Okay, well, we're running out of time, unfortunately, as you alluded to. I can't believe it. That went by so quick. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It was such a pleasure to have you both.
That was great. To be
Really,
here.
really, really great. Anytime you want to come back, we'd love to have you.
Can we have them say a little bit?
I was about to.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
Yeah, I got it. Our special guest tonight.
Sorry,
on
I'm not
Midnight-
psychic. Just wanted to make sure. Go ahead.
Look, I'm a professional, Margo.
We are the. Well, I'm sorry for you because I'm not. So.
Yeah, we're about the same here. All right, our special guest tonight on Midnight Menu Plus One was Ryan Pruitt of Peche, and his plus one was Ashley Locklear, his forager, procurer, and much more. It We're going to find out more. If you want to find out more about Peche or any of the other restaurants in the group, go to our website. And why don't you give us a little plug right now? What are the hours of Peche and what's the website address?
So Peche, we're open Monday through Saturday, lunch and dinner from 11 to 10 during the week and 11 to 11 on the weekends. Peche Nola is where the Twitter handle is. Come see
and
us.
that's Peche, Peche.
That's it.
Nola.
That's right.
Okay, great.
All right. Well, there'll be more about that on our website, and you can find links to it on itsneworleans.com. Our show is recorded live here at Ted's Frost Top on Claiborne and Calhoun in Uptown New Orleans. Ted's is open 7 days a week, serving first-class burgers, beer, and their awesome homemade root beer in a frosty mug. Midnight Menu Plus One is produced by Grant Morris, and Chris Keogh is our technical director. And the fabulous audio quality of the show is brought to you by PreSonus Audio Electronics, who makes all kinds of really great stuff. You can get in touch with us here at Midnight Menu Plus One by going to our website, itsneworleans.com. And from there, you can follow us on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook. Sign up for our mailing list, buy T-shirts and sunglasses and all kinds of swag. It's great. And while you're at itsneworleans.com, you can listen to our other episodes of Midnight Menu Plus One, as well as our other shows. Happy Hour, Mindset, Viet Nola, True to the Game, Out to Lunch. If you're listening to the show on iTunes, we thank you for subscribing. Maybe you could take a minute to rate and review us, and that helps other people find us. Midnight Menu Plus One is a production of INO Broadcasting for itsneworleans.com. Till we meet again here at Ted's Frost Top, I'm Ray Canada.
And I'm Margot Moss. Sorry, I was lulled by the...
by my monotone delivery of our long exit script.
I was
See
just
you
thinking
back
I need a shot.
You do need a shot. See you back at, well, fortunately it's midnight, so we can do that. Midnight Menu Plus One. Good night.
You know Labor Day signals the unofficial end of summer, but not the end of your outdoor projects. Lowe's helps you do it right and helps you save with Labor Day deals throughout the store. Shop now and get 2 bags of Stay Green potting mix for $12. And keep your lawn looking neat and trim with a Craftsman 2-cycle 17-inch gas string trimmer, now $20 off at just $119. Whatever's still on your to-do list this Labor Day, do it right for less. Start with Lowe's. Offers valid through 8/28. Soil offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii, U.S. only.